So here we are, Nicky, that time of the year again, very exciting time, of course, the start of a new campaign. You look to have a pretty strong team assembled going forward.
I think so, yeah. I think very exciting team, actually. It's good. I mean, there's the good old boys at the top. They've got to live up to it again, but then coming behind them, I think it's a really exciting crew. And, you know, across the board, it's we've got a lot to look forward to, and we're nearly ready to look over the parapet.
Well, we'll talk a lot about your novice hurdles and novice chases in due course, but let's start off with the big guns, notably, of course, Constitution Hill, winner of the Unibet Champion Hurdle back a couple of years ago. Of course, we all know what happened last year. It's all been well advertised, so we'll leave that and just concentrate on him now. How is he? How forward is he ahead of the fighting fifth?
We think he's in fantastic form, right? He just seems a completely different person. I mean, if you watch him walking and trotting about in the morning, you wouldn't. He's the same as ever. But just in a lot of other ways, his whole demeanour has sort of seems to have changed a bit. Very perky, very up for it, and he's even having a bit of a buck. And we built him a new house, and he seems very happy in it. And he goes out. He can go out in the field whenever he likes. He can stay in his box whenever he likes. I mean, according to the weather, we shut him in sometimes, but. He's really enjoyed that. He just seems, he just seems really happy. We haven't started the fast work, which is going to start now. We've got 5 weeks until the fighting fifth, which is where we intend to start, where we intended to start last year and did the year before. Unfortunately, it was off last year, which was really frustrating. It was the start of the frustration, if you like. But so the idea would be to go there and start there. And say everything's gone very well so far, and he's just really bouncy.
It's a tried and tested route that you've used successfully over the years with your previous hurdlers. So fighting fifth, Christmas hurdle, possibly the Unibet hurdle at Cheltenham on Trials Day with a big one in March.
Yeah, I mean, you haven't got any options. Last year on that score it went wrong because the fighting fifth was off. He went to Kempton over Christmas hurdle. Great, did the usual old, it was a lap of honour, to be honest with you. And then, we were going to go for the Unibet, and then he scoped wrong, and it all went on from there. It's just unfortunate. I mean, the whole thing was a disaster in that one, only finished up with colic and couldn't run at Cheltenham. Let's hope all the gremlins are behind us because, it was with the weather and this and that and colic, it was not his fault, and I've got to say it wasn't ours either, as much as everybody would love to assume it was, but don't wish it.
The hurling division could be quite strong this year, certainly from Willie Mullins' yard. Obviously, you've got Stateman, who won the Unibet Champion Hurdle last year, and also word is that Lossiemouth is going to be aimed at that as well. So, not he's got to improve, but he's got to maintain that high level of form for another season.
He has, yeah. No, it's never going to be easy, is it? But I mean, he has dominated it for a while. Stateman, did what he had to do last year. We've always had a few laughs about it earlier on, a few sort of far-flung statements from Willie's camp coming from, and a few from ours, I admit, but it's all good fun. And let's hope they all get there. I don't know whether they would likely to meet anything of theirs on the way. To be fair, Constitution isn't likely to go and take on Stateman before Cheltenham, only because Joe Donnelly owns Stateman, and we're lucky enough to have SIR GINO here as well. That's how sort of where we might go with him, and he's hardly likely to go and take on Stateman.
Well, let's talk about SIR GINO then. You just touched on him briefly there. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him in the Triumph Hurdle, but he came out and was so impressive at Aintree. So is the Unibet Champion Hurdle the ultimate goal for him as well? I
would have thought so. It's a good problem to have in that you've got SIR GINO and Constitution. They're going to have to, you'd assume they're going to have to meet at some stage. As I say, and then SIR GINO doesn't really need to meet Stateman until, say, something like the Champion Hurdle, only because Joe Donnelly owes them both. So that would be a bit foolish for them to go clashing any earlier. There are other races there we can use. That elite hurdle at Wincanton comes to mind for SIR GINO. And there are other places we could go. But no, he's in really good form. He is a very good horse.
And he's a horse, you've just said there, he's a very good horse. I think even before he'd run at Kempton, the ducks were quacking, so to speak. There's been a lot of, this horse arrived with quite a reputation, didn't it?
I think, he actually, Kempton wasn't that good because no. I assumed he was going to jump with his eyes shut. And I think we'd only schooled him once. And we quickly found out, actually, at Kempton, he got a bit lost, to be honest with you. I mean, the engine was different class. And then he went to Cheltenham and he was seriously good. So, he's very talented. He's grown a lot. He's just a big horse now. I mean, the temptation would be to go novice chasing, but I think we've probably resisted that one and keep it up our sleeve for another year. But he showed us everything last year, and he did everything right. I mean, there was nothing wrong with him at Christmas at Cheltenham. It was just that, as you know, with a lot of the horses, I wasn't happy with the way they were running, and I just didn't dare do it. It would have been crazy under the circumstances.
Jonbon, been a star for you and JP McManus. Again, Slur Chase, Tingle Creek and so forth for him?
Well, yeah, plans. I mean, it's easy, like it was this time last year. You said this is what you're going to do with Constitution Hill. If he was right, it would have been easy. But you can't just take these things for granted. It will happen. Anything can happen. Then it throws the whole plan into disarray. He'd be ready for the Slur, then the Tingle Creek. You'd then hope the Clarence House, and then you'd hope Cheltenham. That is the plan. God willing, that's what we will be doing. He's in great form. He seems to just loves what he's doing, and he'll have a racecourse gallop before Cheltenham, the first Cheltenham Slur. Let's hope that's. We get a clean run all the way through. To be fair, he did last year. Again, like SIR GINO, we just didn't run him in Cheltenham because it seemed wrong. I wish we had, because the way that Champion Chase turned out, I cannot believe if he'd had a nice, the way he did it at Aintree and Sandown at the end of the day, if he'd have done that at Cheltenham, he would have surely won that Champion Chase. That was not difficult. At the end of the day, he'd beaten all the first three time and time again.
Is he a little bit more relaxed at home now? Because I know previously he could just be a little bit on his toes.
He's he's good. I mean, Paddy rides him every day. He'd tell you that he's great. I mean, he does do different things to the other horses. He doesn't come into the covered ride in the morning because I don't know why, whether he gets claustrophobic or something in there. He just sweats and fusses, and Paddy takes him off for a walk on a trot outside and then joins in with the others. With that, he's fine. We'll have a couple of away days. We'll take him and just lead him round. Usually take him to Newbury, just walk once round the paddock and come home, because that just gets him a bit edgy. But it takes him out the system if you do that, and then a gallop and away, and touch wood, he'll be ready for the Slur like he was last year.
And of course, all those races you've just spoken about are all over 2 miles. Sort of a season ago, a lot of people were suggesting that he could be a King George candidate. Would you ever consider that, even perhaps further down the line, and then look at a little bit further?
I don't know. I mean, I would have thought yes, but at the moment we're definitely staying down the 2 mile road. I would quite like to try it, but the question is, it would be try. We know he gets 2.5. I think it would be. I mean, we're staying down 2 miles, all for the, that's where we're going. Slur, Tingle Creek. That really takes out anything over 3 miles before the new year. I mean, yeah, you got the Tingle. If you talked about the King George, it would come too close on top of 2 quite quick runs.
So sticking with the chasers, some nice veterans of the yard still here. Good to see Mr. Coffey this morning and Fantastic Lady. Chantry House as well. Let's start off with Chantry House. What's the plan for him?
Well, I think it is a possibility, and he would be eligible to go hunter chasing, which only tells you that he hasn't won a chase for quite some time. I mean, he was a very, very high-class horse. I'm not saying he isn't, but we went back over hurdles last year, had a horrible fall at Weatherby the season before. It really was nasty, and he didn't break bones in his neck, but he had fractures, and he was lucky, to be fair. But We did go back over hurdles last year, and he ran some good races. We've schooled him back over fences recently, and he's in great form. But he could hunt a chase, and it is an avenue worth exploring for him. They start in January. So it just might be going to get him going and get his confidence back. That's what we need. But he's in great, most beautiful horse, and he's loving what he's doing at the moment.
Well, if races were won on looks, Mr. Coffee would be unbeaten. He's absolutely gorgeous, isn't he? But amazingly, he's yet to win over fences. So must be one of the oldest novices you've got in the stable.
Well, he would be the oldest novice, yeah. But I mean, it's just, as I say, I'm getting very frustrated with this novice chase program because it's driving us insane. I think when we get onto the novice chases, you'll see why. But it's just a horse that's rated as high as he was over hurdles. To find him a novice chase that he can win, to get him going, to get him off the ground. I mean, he hasn't won a novice chase because of the system, not because of lack of ability, lack of anything. You can't find him a race that he can win. It's not possible. He's handicapped out of them all. Can't run in. There are no novice chases. It's just impossible. Might as well go to Ireland and run him in a beginner's chase. They have 3 a week.
Okay, a fantastic lady. Is she going to win you the Grand National?
We toyed with the idea of running in it last year. To be fair, she wouldn't have got in. We ran her in the Topham again, which she loves. She's been second in it before. She's a good mare when it comes to the spring like that, and she finished off the season with a great performance in the Oaksey Chase at Sandown, which is a Grade 2, which was, particularly good for her CV as a prospective broodmare, which is what she'll be doing in the, well, I hope the not near future. Consequently, she's gone up, that rating now would bring her into a Grand National. The Oaks Chase was 2 miles 6. She stays 3 miles. That's up to Joss and Nicky. I think the Grand National is always that's the owner's call, I always feel. And if they were happy to, I'd love to have a go. Not for obvious reasons. I think she'd suit it. She loves Aintree, and you'd think she'd stay. So it's a possibility. I mean, we're always looking for something that might have a chance.
And a horse who's switching from fences to novice hurdles is Excello.
Well, only because we ran him over fences last year because he'd actually won a chase in France. So he wasn't going to be a novice chaser for any more than one season. So but he's never won a hurdle race. So he still has, he's only a young horse now. He can actually come back and have a novice hurdle campaign. And he was a bit of an unlucky horse last year because I know they'd always told us in France, you won't see the best of him until he gets into some really soft ground. And I don't know how, because it was a wet winter, but wherever he went, he kept finding good ground. And I never got to run him in really soft ground. So anyway, I think that's what we're going to do. Drop him back into a perfectly ordinary novice hurdle. Could be fun.
You think it could be a nice race to be run with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Lucia, she ran a great race, didn't she, in the Unibet Champion Hurdle? Is she ever going to jump a fence, or definitely hurdles for her?
No, to be fair, we have a lot of novice chasers this year. We have had a look at them over fences just to sort of across the board to see, who was going to who would enjoy it and who were the really good ones or which ones might just struggle a bit. And to be fair, she was the only one that more or less said, no, this isn't for me. I don't think we were desperately surprised. It will almost certainly be her last year. So we'll be sticking to hurdles. I mean, she's just been fantastic. She won that hurdle race at Ascot before Christmas. That's the prize money in the bank for the year. Or for 3 years, because that was worth a lot of money. And it was Paul Sandy's idea to run in the Champion Hurdle from way back. It wasn't a last-minute thing, and nothing to do with Constitution Hill being there or not being there. And Paul was just really wanted to have a crack. And she ran a great race. And to be fair, I wasn't trying to decry Stateman, but when you see Lucia finishing only 4 or 5 lengths behind Stateman, it makes you wonder where Constitution Hill was going to be, because we know their relative merits, from at home, and 4 or 5 lengths is no, 45 lengths maybe. No, she's been a terrific mare. We've had tremendous fun. 3rd in the Champion Hurdle on her CV is terrific. I hope we might start in the Weatherby listed mares hurdle there, 2nd of November. So she should be ready for that. And then, there are options. She'll just follow that. The mares, graded races, and, as I say, for once another go at the Champion Hurdle, fine. I won't, certainly after last year, I won't be there trying to stop him.
Well, as we already touched on, it was Cheltenham was a washout for you this year. She finished 3rd in the Champion Hurdle. Iberica also ran in the race, of course, having previously won at Newbury earlier on in the campaign. What's the likely target for him? What are you looking at for him this season?
I think almost certainly novice chasing. Say they've all had a school or 2 now. He's been very, very good. He's quick and brave. And if you go back to the Champion Hurdle, Lucia, we ran the 2. Lucia ran her race. Iberico didn't. That's for the same reasons we didn't run Jonbons and the other ones, because we just didn't know what they were going to do. And there you go. Lucia did and Iberico didn't. I didn't run him again. There was no need to, really. He'd already won 2 very valuable hurdle races. So he didn't owe anybody anything for the season. Just put him away and get him ready for this one. And I think he'll be a very exciting novice chaser.
Before we go through this year's novice chasers, let's just quickly touch on Under Control. What's the plan with her?
She'd almost certainly stay over hurdles. But a couple of days she was disappointing last year, I've got to say, in the Jerry Fielding in particular. And then she came and ran a good, she was good again. And we went on with her. We went into the summer and she had a bit of a break. She went home, came back, and we got her ready for the Galway Hurdle. She ran a very good race to a point. The point being the second last, or even actually the last, really, because where it is there, it's a long way out. I don't know whether it was just a lack of a prep race, really, but then she went back, had a break. She's a very talented mare. She worked extremely well the other weekend. She'd be running in the good graded races anyway.
And a horse who was pretty good over hurdles season back is Attica, of course, carries the silks of Altior, those of Pat Pugh. How's he been since we last saw him?
Very good. He had a bizarre injury, which was sort of below the joint and a complicated one, I have to say. But it's taken a good year to repair, but touch wood, everything is going the right way. And, if we can get him right, he's a very good horse.
And the mare Power Pori, who was a nice listed winner at Haydock last year?
She's lovely, a golden horn filly with bags of scope. She was pretty talented on the flat, but she took very well to hurdling. She's lovely. She's listed winner already, but I think she can continue to progress. She could be high class, yeah.
And just one final one to throw into the mix. A lot of people may have forgotten all about this horse. Jet Powered, how's he?
Touch again. I have to say, touch wood. He hasn't had it easy. We've had all sorts of. He's sound, leg-wise and everything else. He hasn't had any issues down there, but I don't know. Little things keep annoying him. We weren't sure really, but we're getting there at the moment. All's going well currently. Now, he was reportedly a very high-class pointer, and he won his first start over hurdles, and we all hoped he was going to be great, but as can happen and does happen, the sort of wheels technically fell off, and it's been a long haul back, but let's hope we're on the right road. You know us, we don't give up very easily, so we're getting there.
I suppose one downside to the fact that he won that race at Newbury was that he's obviously not a novice now, and having only won
He's not.
race.
He looks like a chaser. Do you go jumping fences with him straight away? But again, where can you? He hasn't got a handicap mark, so and there are no beginners chases. I'd love to go chasing with him, but he wouldn't be allowed to. Simple.
Right, so let's look at last year's novice hurdlers, many of which are now going to go and jump the larger obstacles. They were all very, very high class over timber, so it must have been quite a difficult decision for you to decide where you're going to go with them. Let's start with Jericho de Repine, who got the job done at Doncaster in the early part of the season, ran in the Supreme. Is he always sort of, whatever he did over hurdles, was that a bonus, chasing his game?
Well, it's certainly going to be his game. He has been, he has schooled really, really well. We've got a fair bit more to go yet. We only got onto the grass for the first time last week. From schooling-wise, we haven't. The gallops itself are not hoping again it'll be better for tomorrow. But yeah, he's been very good. Yeah, I mean he won his first 2 races very easily. I don't think he did anything wrong. He because he didn't win on the bridle, he got knocked a bit for. That was a good race that day.
The form has worked out well.
The form has worked out very strong. He did nothing wrong. But he actually gave us an idea that he might want a bit further. But watching him school at the moment, he looks like a 2-miler. And I'm sure we'll start over 2 miles anyway. And let's just see what he can do. He's a beautiful horse. And he's obviously a very talented horse. So I hope he could be pretty smart.
And Doddy the Great?
Yeah. He doing the same thing. He's schooled over fences. He probably went a little bit further. I mean, he's apart from winning the races he won, he's probably his best run was when he was really flying at the end in the Betfair Hurdle, which we were winning anyway with Iberico Lord. And he flew home. And then, again, he was one of the horses that did run at Cheltenham, but didn't run up to their form. But he could make a very high. He certainly won't further than 2 miles. And yeah, he's enjoyed it so far.
Django Bay.
He's interesting. I mean, the first thing was that he won his novice hurdle the first time. I wasn't terribly happy with the idea of moving the Tolworth hurdle to Aintree on Boxing Day, and told them that waste of time and you won't be seeing me. And
what you going to do?
I think it was a shame, I must admit, but to be fair play, then who turns up? And just to rub salt in the wound, so I had to sort of eat humble pie, and we go and win it with Django Bay. And it was a good performance. But where it was interesting, in fairness, he then gets a £5 penalty for all the grade 2s. And at the end of the day, he had 3 more runs, second all 3 times, beaten less than, I think, a length and a half or a length each time, giving £5. If he hadn't won the Tolworth being a grade 1, he'd have won 3 grade 2s. And I think you'll find the prize money for the 3 grade 2s would have actually been more than the Tolworth on its own. So it was a bit of a double-edged sword, really. Yeah. It cost him 3 races. But there you go. I mean, that's what it is. He's won a grade 1 and he'll go novice chasing. Yeah, he's been very good. He'd get further than 2 miles, although he's won over, a sharp 2 miles at Aintree was, you need a bit of toe for that. So he's not a slow horse by any means.
And a horse in a very similar category to Django Bay is Jingo Blue. How's he?
Very good. Again, he loved his schooling so far. He was very, very impressive that day at Sandown with a big weight and a novice handicap, but he really did look a very good horse, and I think he is. He's grown again. He's growing into a lovely horse, and yeah, he could be. I think and hope he could be top class.
And Lucky Place also ran at Cheltenham and ran very well, finishing I think 4th, wasn't it, in the handicap there?
Yeah, he was one of the horses that did turn up at Cheltenham, and that's why we didn't write off the whole crew across the board. We ran a few with our eyes open to what might happen, and some of them ran really well. Lucky Place he's fantastic. He was so consistent all the way through. He won a couple of good races. He was placed all the time. Very, very consistent. Just a really pleasant horse to have around. He's great. And plan is to go novice chasing. But now, I mean, I've got to say this at some stage. Where are they going to go? Because this list goes on and on and on. I'm glad to say we're very, very lucky there's a whole lot of very, very high-class hurdlers going novice chasing, all rated from 130 to 140. Where can you run them? We don't appear now to have any beginners chases, hardly any in this country. They're going to force them straight into handicaps. They're almost certainly going to have to run in handicaps against older horses. I go back to a day when I was at Fred Winter's, and we did it once with a novice chaser there. We ran it in a handicap first time out, and it was an absolute disaster. And Fred just turned around and said, there you go, we'll never make that mistake again. And it was a mistake. It wrecked the horse, because you're taking on older horses that have got the, it's a different ball game. Novices are novices and handicappers are handicappers. You go and take them on, and that's what we're going to be forced to do. And if anybody wants to know why there aren't enough chasers around, here you are. They don't give them a chance.
I suppose from the other side of the coin, you can perhaps see where the BHA are coming from in the fact.
Oh yeah, we can't have 5-horse races, but there won't be any chasers to fill any chases in a minute. I'm going to have to put some of these back over hurdles. They might never see a fence because they haven't got the opportunity to go there. And as I said before, you could go to Ireland and have 3 beginners chases in a week. Then you have 5 or 6 runners, because a good horse will crop up there. But they give their horses a chance to come through the system. And we don't. It's so simple.
Well, it looks like you've got plenty of contenders for the revamped 2.5 mile novice handicap at the festival anyway.
You do, yeah.
Might be just a 7 barrows race.
I mean, I've always thought that was, I think when they switched from the novice handicap to the grade, I personally thought that was wrong at the time. I'm glad to see that that's come back. Admittedly, it's going to come back at a much higher level because the rating band was a 0 to 140. And in fact, it was never a 0 to 140. It usually had a full field with a 5-pound weight range. And so it was barely a handicap. You had to be so clever, or tried to be clever, to get your horse off the right mark. Once you'd got it there, you couldn't afford to move it. Otherwise, you weren't going to get in. It was always quite an interesting game to try and, as I say, you had to hit the nail on the head. If you were 1 pound wrong, you wouldn't get in. One way or too high or too low.
Back to business. Chock-a-Block is a horse I thought was quite progressive over hurdles last season. Ran well at Ayr on his final start. Is he going to be jumping the big ones?
Yep. Yeah, I think he's a pretty... he's a talented horse. He's run some very good races, and he's really enjoyed his schooling so far, and he's been very, very good. So, I mean, he joins this great squad.
And he's from a family you know well as well, of course. Chomba Wumba, Chock-a-Walker, so it's a...
Yeah, no, it's lovely. And Richard and Colin Hughes, who bred him, and share him now with James and Jean Potter, so we'll have a lot of fun together.
What about Peaky Boy?
Straight over fences, and he could be very high class.
How much of a surprise was it to you when he won so well at Cheltenham on New Year's Day? It was very impressive.
No surprise.
No. He'd always
unfortunately, he only had 2 runs last year. He went to Cheltenham both times, and he was very impressive both times. He's good, yeah.
Okay. Bective Abbey?
Straight over fences. He was very impressive his last run, yeah.
I suppose what we need to look at now, we know they're all going to go over fences. It's a case of trying to separate them into 2 miles, 2.5 and 3 miles.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to do. And you're talking there probably a horse that'll get 3. Shanna Bob will come in as a 3-miler.
Yeah.
Ideal Day Board will come in as a 3-miler. We've already got in our minds, as you rightly say, there's 3-milers, there's 2.5s, and there's 2. I think I've got a pretty good idea where the 2s are and where the 3s are. It's a matter of where all the others are going to slot in. But we've printed ourselves out a list of the novice chases available. From Cartmel to Timbuktu, we're going to have to be there wherever there is a novice chase.
Just going back to Shanna Bob, I think he made his debut at Plumpton in a very low level, and obviously came out and won again after that at Cheltenham. I remember you saying he's very similar to Bobsworth, and in fact he's not particularly impressive in what he does, but he's very good in what he does.
He's just a nice person. Yeah, very laid back, lovely attitude, lovely character, straightforward, doesn't sort of he wouldn't be the flashiest, and the fact they've both got Bob in their names makes no difference at all. But they're just two nice Bobs.
Well, one horse who is definitely built for chasing, he's absolutely gigantic, is Wheel Mount. We haven't seen him since he was disappointing you in the early part of the season. Is he back now and in good form?
Yeah, very good form, yeah. No, he looks tremendous. And again, the plan is to go novice chasing. And that's what he's built and bred to do, so you've got to get on with it.
There's usually a slightly more easier for the mares. There's quite a nice sort of mares novice chase series. So would Aston Martini sort of fit into that sort of category?
Yes, she would. Plan is to go novice chasing. But she has got the mares. But again, look through it. There aren't many mares novice chases. There really aren't. There's another good mare, Break My Soul. I might give her a run over hurdles on the way, but she needs to go novice chasing as well. There aren't many. Yes, there are mares novice chases for 0 to 110s, 0 to 115s, 0 to 120. They're all 130. There aren't any mares novice chases for them. None.
Bo Zenith.
He could be interesting, couldn't he? I mean, he's had a year off, and this is the first time he's been here. But his last run was at Liverpool in the Glenlivet the year before last, and he got beaten a nose. It's got him a pretty high mark, but he's back and he's doing plenty of work now. I wouldn't think he'd start over fences. I think he'll have to go over fences, but I think to get him going, we'd probably certainly give him a run over hurdles just to let him find his feet. But he's a fine big horse, yes.
Nicky, Impost Trois ran in the Lanzarote Hurdle and picked up a bit of an injury after that, so obviously very unexposed in that sphere. What's the plan going forward for him?
Guess. Goes novice chasing.
Novice chasing, yeah. And you feel he could be even better over fences?
Yeah, he is, yeah. He will be, yeah.
So sticking with the novice chasers, 3 more. Baloo is one of them. I'm assuming you've got him ready quite early because I did see you had him entered at Cheltenham at the weekend.
Yeah, it was, yes, he won't run there, but he'd be ready in a fortnight. I'd rather go straight over fences with him, actually. And it's funny, I mean, then you can say there's loads of novice chases. What about Cheltenham? I'm just never quite, there are 2 novice chase courses. I've always been a bit nervous about starting them. And I'm talking about just making their debut over fences. Cheltenham and Ascot. I love them as tracks. I love them as novice chase tracks. Personally, I just feel we've launched a few there for their first runs. And I remember Mike Bite ran him in a novice chase first time at Cheltenham, because he was brilliant at home, and it frightened the living daylights out of him, and had to go back over hurdles for the whole of the rest of the season and start again the following year. And he wins the RSA.
Yeah.
But it frightened him. And Ascot, it's happened to us before too. They just find that going down that hill and then they suddenly start going left-handed, and the next thing is you've got a horse that has to go left-handed for the rest of its life. And they do have novice chases there, but I just don't think it's a good track to start them off. It's brave. Yeah. And I'd hate to, we've made that mistake a few times. I don't say it's a mistake. Lots of people will go and do that and think Henderson's talking rubbish, but I'm just always rather nervous about it. And as I say, Baloo is ready to start, but I wouldn't be starting round Cheltenham.
What about south of the border?
Yeah, he was a good novice hurdler. The only thing we never quite got on top of what his trip was. He was good over 2, and then we thought he'd be better at 2.5, and he nearly say, well, did he not stay? I'm sure he'll stay. Probably find he wants 3. But he's jumped fences very well. They're all ex-Irish pointers. Well, Baloo's not, and south of the border is, and he knows what he's doing.
Kintail?
I've been impressed with him schooling fences. But probably Nico and I are both sort of impressed with him because he wasn't the greatest. His technique over hurdles wasn't absolutely flawless, and yet we've schooled him 2 or 3 times now over fences, and he's been really good. And he just definitely jumps a fence better than he jumped a hurdle. It's interesting. I think he's just got more respect for them and or he's just grown up, one of the two. But he's been doing it very nicely, so I expect he'll go straight over fences before he learns any more bad habits over hurdles.
There are a few that are going to stay over hurdles or will make their debuts over hurdles. Kingston Pride is one of those who showed some smart bumper form.
He did. I thought I was being frightfully clever. We went to Lingfield for that very valuable bumper on their million weekend. And it was a £40,000 bumper. We thought we were being frightfully clever. He beat everything bar one by about 10 lengths and got beaten half a length himself, which was rather annoying. But he ran a good race, and then he had one more bumper at Exeter, which he won very nicely. I think he's a good sort of horse, and he'll be for chasing next year. There's no doubt about that. But so he starts the year as a novice hurdler, and I think a high-class prospect.
Of course, he carries the silks of Ollie Harris, Tradecraft for Michael Buckley, of course, Constitution Hill fame. Again, smart bumper form for Tradecraft.
Tradecraft he was interesting because he was second on his debut at Ascot to a horse of Paul Nichols's that was making his debut as well, and they beat us a couple of lengths. He was one of Chris Giles's that was in the dispersal at Doncaster and made a rather large amount of money. I was wondering how much Tradecraft might make for finishing 2 lengths behind him on his debut, but I don't think horses get valued that way. He's a nice horse, Tradecraft. We like him, and he jumps well. He's ready to make his debut over hurdles.
As would Dr. Kildare, who was impressive bumper winner at Bangor.
Dr. Kildare, yeah, the bumper horses from last year, there was a number of them. I mean, Dr. Kildare, centre of attention, he'd be in the same sort of category as well. Yeah, there was a nice bunch. We had another whole bunch that were ready to run in the spring, and having had our little break through March, had to get them going, and then the ground dried up, so quite a lot didn't get to run. But I think there's some nice things hidden in there that I don't know a lot about, and I'm sure you don't know anything about because you don't know what I'm talking about.
Joyous, obviously very smart pedigree. She's related to your Unibet Champion Hurdle at Epperton. How's this mare?
Yeah, good. I mean, she's in an unfortunate situation in that she only had one run. She hadn't been the easiest, a few issues. We got her to the racecourse, she did it well. But that sort of kicked off a sort of chain reaction, if you like, and we couldn't run her again. Where do you go with a horse that's not a novice and has only had one run? There is a very good race at Ascot. We used it for Doddy the Great last year, and but so we're going to aim there with her. As I say, if you can't have had more than one run, at least everybody's going to be in the same boat. She has a penalty for it, but we'll aim for that to start with, and I hope she can progress from there. But to watch, I hope she might make. She can't run in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle. That's what I was hoping for last year. But we'll just have to see how she gets along. It makes it tough for her because she hasn't even got a handicap mark. So we'll see.
We saw Crazier Than Daisy in your indoor schooling rig now. Quite a excitable mare, I suppose you could say.
Well, she didn't get the name for nothing. She's lovely. Funny enough, she's mellowed a lot because it wasn't long ago. I mean, last year, you couldn't go into the box with her. She'd just destroy you. And I never went too close to her. And it wasn't long ago that I was just wandering around feeling horses' legs and going into boxes and just wasn't concentrating, didn't look at the door, walked in, felt its legs. I'm not meant to be in here. And she's really mellowed a lot. I mean, last year you'd have been taking your life in your hands to have done that. And she has settled down. She's fresh and enthusiastic, but she doesn't want to knock you out anymore, so which is quite pleasant. She's lovely. She won a bumper at Plumpton. It wasn't a great race, but she'll improve by walking the park. She's grown up a lot. She could be fun.
And finally, in this division, Go to War.
Yeah, not one I'd know a lot about. We haven't had him very long. Very likeable. What he's done so far, he's doing very well. He's got some pretty solid form, to be fair, before he came here. So, we'd look forward to him, yeah. He could be an exciting prospect. He'd jump a fence in time. Whether it's sooner or later, I'm not sure.
Always an exciting time of the year. Lots of new recruits coming to the stable. Again, we don't know much about them. You're learning about them. Charisma, some smart form from France in bumpers, along with Keinsheim, a German-sounding bred horse.
It does sound it, but she is actually French.
What can you tell us about those two?
Yeah, very little at this stage, except the two smashing mares. They have got some high class. They're the AQPS flat races, which, to all intents and purposes, are our bumpers. Charisma's been placed in a Group 1 bumper and won a Group 3, I think. And Kienstein, she's also related to Epitante. But they're lovely mares, all schooled, to jump very well. French horses tend to do that. They're well schooled as youngsters, so they don't leave us with too much hard work to do on that score. They look lovely at the moment, and we wouldn't be far away from having a look to see what they can do.
All right, okay. Sutherland, another one we don't know much about.
Yeah, I can't tell you anything about Sutherland. He had a run in a bumper at Punchestown before he came over here, and things didn't go right for him on the day, I know. But, I like everything I've seen so far, but it's very early days. Fine big horse.
And another one, Nicky, La Pinsonnière. What can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, she's a gorgeous filly, big scopy mare that came from France. She's got some very solid form. Luckily, she hasn't won over hurdles in France. She's got some good Auteuil hurdle form, but she's a maiden over hurdles, which gives us a lot more opportunities than, say, had she won a hurdle race. So, no, we're looking forward to it. We're getting, she's not as forward as some of them, but she's great, and she'll be coming along soon.
Let's talk about centre of attention. What can you tell us about this one?
He won a bumper at Wincanton. It was, it wasn't exactly the champion bumper, but for a horse that he was very green throughout the race. But once he got the hang of it and put his head down, he did it well. And to be fair, Wincanton wouldn't have been it's quite a quick track. You don't get a lot of time to think. He did well, and I like him.
What about Incisive for Ronnie Bartlett?
Yeah, he's nice. I mean, Ronnie trained him himself, and he is the leading champion trainer of Aintree, so he knows what he's doing. And he won 2 points up there, and now he's come to join in with the big boys, and Ronnie had Sutherland in Ireland before as well, so they're playing around together at the moment. They're two very nice horses. And
of course by the same sire as Bouvedere.
He is indeed, yeah. You don't see too many Crillons at the moment. I'm not sorry. But he was one of those French sires that never really covered a huge amount of mares, so you just don't see an enormous amount of them.
And Ilfu on Mome, an Irish point-to-point winner, again, could be very exciting.
He was. He had one run in a hurdle race last year, which he should have won. But it just went a bit wonky at the end, which was a bit unfortunate. But no, he'd love a bit of soft ground. To be fair, his win needed attention, so I'm looking forward to him coming back.
What about Don Wave?
Now, he could be a high-class horse, but we know very little about him as yet. He came into training this time last year, and had to come out of training a little bit earlier than one might have liked. But he's back in action now and looks the part. He had some pretty smart form in France before he got here, so I'm looking forward to him enormously.
And what about Native Hill?
Native Hill we know very little about. Another horse of Ronnie's who again had to miss last season, and then he had a peculiar thing that, I don't know, it was really, they feel it was to do with his heart, well, not his heart, but his body. It originally appeared to have hiccups, but I don't think it's as simple as that. I mean, touch wood, it's all over, and he's a perfectly normal horse again. But it was bizarre. He was effectively having hiccups every 5 seconds, and that meant throughout the day, throughout the night. And you wonder how a horse could take that sort of thing, because this went on for quite some time, and I mean, he couldn't have slept through it, so he must have had a pretty tough time. But anyway, he's absolutely fine, and let's hope all goes well.
Okay, interesting. A mare called That's Nice just had the one run again in an Irish Point.
She was with Derek O'Connor, like a lot of JP's youngsters last year, and I think they had a pretty strong squad winning the, that won their maidens. She was a 4-year-old. She's nothing like Bloody Mary, who was a small, lovely little grey filly.
Yeah.
But she was actually quite highly rated. I think she was 135 or something like that. But this doesn't look anything like Mum anyway. She's a lovely mare, and at the moment she's doing everything very, very nicely. She'll start in novice hurdles and see how we go, but she's something to look forward to.
And of course, this stable houses Gold Cup winners, Champion Hurdle winners, also Derby winners. How's Palladium?
Well, German Derby winner, yeah. He's about 2 boxes away from where Grundy lived. There you are. And the other interesting thing is I have another horse here that actually came in here as a colt. Is now a gelding. And he ran in the German Derby. So I've got 2 horses for the German Derby this year.
Okay.
One finished at one end and the other finished at the other end. There was quite a gap between them. I like this other horse, but Palladium, yeah, I mean, he's here for a number of, he's a high-class horse. He's a Group 1 winner on the flat. And he's a colt, and he's going to stay a colt because he's a very, very well-bred horse. He has a great pedigree, and he still has the potential to be a stallion. He will be going back flat racing. He's got a lot of, I would consider, unfinished business. I know the underbidders from there were going to take him down to the Melbourne Cup. I'm hoping you'll be seeing him on the flat next summer. Races come to mind. I don't know. We'll just have to see. He does seem to like a little bit of cut in the ground. So whether, you'd like to think he'd be a horse for the Hardwick or something like that at Ascot or something, I don't know, or maybe we go travelling. Be a beautiful horse. He's just lovely. And as I say, he's got the looks, he's got the pedigree. He could be a great flat horse, he could be a stallion.
And of course, he was purchased by Lady Bamford, who of course sponsor the JCB Triumph Hurdle. Is that something you'd be looking at?
Of course it's a possibility. Yeah, we'll have a look at it, and if he really enjoys his jumping, which he's got. The great thing about him is that we don't. If 3-year-olds coming off the flat at this time of the year, we would 9 times out of 10 geld them. Now, we obviously don't geld him for the reasons I mentioned, but he's got a fantastic temperament. He is not colty in any way. He's loving it. He's having a nice time. He's having a bit of a holiday at the same time. So, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's a distinct possibility that's what you do, but you have a nice break now so that we can do the spring and then he'll be ready for next summer.
I was going to say, when will you sort of start thinking, right, we need to get him back in and start doing something with him, if you will?
He won't be doing anything until the new year, that's for sure.
Okay. And just talking to you now, there's lots of new horses that obviously are going to progress throughout the season. It's obviously quite an exciting time for you. In the summer, you're busy going around the sales and picking all these horses with Minty and everybody else, picking the best ones.
Minty and I we had a good time with the store sales. It's amazing, as you've seen with the yearling market this year. Going into it, there was a sort of expectancy of gloom and doom. And I think the vendors were pretty nervous, and we thought horses were going to be cheap. I was trying not to buy too many because I didn't think it would be, who's going to want them? But it's amazing how even the store National Hunt Market held up remarkably well.
Yeah.
And look at that, and the yearlings have, again, the last few weeks, remarkable results. One felt that the market might be overheated and it needed a bit of a meltdown. And, elections on the horizon, everybody was probably a bit jittery. But it's been remarkably strong across the board, and buying horses, wherever you're trying to buy them, they certainly aren't cheap, and they're hard to find. It's nice to be able to buy them, but it's finding them is a difficult bit. But certainly, now, Mint and I, he's flying along, and we did all the stores together again and bought a fair few. like them. We'll find out in the spring what they're all going to be made of, and we've bought a few others on the way, so pointers and things have, and a few new French recruits, so we'll, there's a lot of things to get us up in the morning and keep us excited.
I was going to say, does that excite you as much going to the sales and picking these horses as much as it does training them when they win?
Well, it's a pretty important day because when we buy them, we've got to live with them for the next, hopefully, 5 or 6 years. So if we get that day wrong, we've got to live with our mistakes, if you like. I mean, and they can't all be good, especially in buying stores. You've got very little to go on except conformation and pedigree. And whereas if you're buying form, it's still very easy to get it wrong. There's some remarkably bad point-to-points, I hate to tell you, some remarkably bad bumpers around as well. The horses just proved to be, for no particular reason, they just weren't good races, and winners come out, that things that come out and win them can be very disappointing. So there's no certainty. However well they might have done, it's not cut and fast. There's work to be done to find out what they are. We're just starting to get a look, but it is exciting because, a lot of horses are starting to do their first bits of work. We don't know what to expect. It was rather like Constitution when we started with him. I thought he was, I'm sure you heard the story. I rang Barry three times. I thought you told me this was good. He said, I promise you he is. I don't believe you at the moment, but I had to in the end. And that sort of thing goes on as well. To start with, maybe they don't show you everything. We're just trying to have a normal hack up the old Monday morning, hack up the old weather on it, and the same with Joy.
Lots of horses come here from Ireland having won a point-to-point, and you've got quite a nice group of horses come from Paul Holden. Is any of those catching your eye at the moment?
I think so, yeah. These are all 4-year-olds that Paul had. Paul, who actually starts them off as point-to-pointers and sold us Jonbon. They had a difficult, I think all the point-to-point boys had a difficult time in Ireland last spring, and consequently he didn't get his horses to the racecourse. And so they've literally come over here in a bunch, and some really nice horses. There's 10 of them, and we're just getting them all going, and 1 or 2, the intention is to run them. And there's a nice bunch of very well bred, and they're all by top class stallions with great pedigrees. That we're doing plenty with them. They're all schooled. They're working, and they're going to be ready to run. We'll run them, but they are available. Anybody like to come and see a nice horse? As I say, they're proper pedigrees. There's a jukebox jury who's a half brother to appreciate it. Half brother to appreciate it, and some proper pedigrees and some lovely horses. And there's authorised and Westerners and Shudamores. Sour I like a lot. Jericho's sour actually. Blue Brazils, everything, and some proper individuals. And so we're going to get on and run them. The authorised will be ready to run in a couple of weeks' time actually. And as I say, it's nice to have them on board. They're some horses for the future, which is exciting. And we've got our own bunch of those as well. And I think, we bought quite a lot this summer, and quite a lot, rather like his, that we couldn't run in the spring because the ground just caught us out a little bit. So there's a few unknowns, which is always exciting because they're just starting to come on tap now, and interesting.
Okay. Bear Market, what can you tell us about this one?
Well, he's lovely. The Barlow family, George and Anne Barlow, who've had Bear's Affair and Beware the Bear, and now we've got Bear Market. And he'd run and won a point-to-point in the spring, and then ran in, they have a couple of them, an interesting race. It was a point-to-point bumper for English bumper horses, English point-to-point horses only, at Aintree. And million runners, but he won really nicely. And I think, nice for us. The plan was always to come on to graduate through there and come here, and he's now in action, and he's schooled and starting work, and he wouldn't be far away. Lovely big horse. Yeah, all right. Good.
Right, well, we've spoken about pretty much all of the yards. I mean, at the moment, the dream is still alive for so many of them, but there must be something that's just catching your eye in the mornings, whether it's on the gallops or on the schooling ground. So what's the novice hurdler we've got to look forward to this season?
Well, I think there were some nice youngsters in the bumper crew last year, and I love that. Michael's got a lovely horse called Tradecraft, and I've liked him because he's taken a long time to grow into himself, and he has. He's grown upwards, and he's grown into a fine horse. I don't say he wasn't one in the first place, but he's just a smashing individual. He was second in a very good bumper at Ascot, and I think he's got a big future.
Okay, you've got stacks of novice chasers, as we've already spoken about. Again, same question. Anything in particular catching your eye on the schooling ground here?
Well, they do. It's hard to pick one out. Like at Touchwood, they've been very good so far. I mean, there's a lot to happen yet before they're ready to run. But you'd have to say something like Django Bay. I mean, he is a Grade 1 hurdle winner, so it wouldn't be... He's grown and strengthened up. He wouldn't be hard pushed to see him being hopefully top class over fences.
And we know how well you do in bumpers, certainly towards the latter stage of the season, so it is still early days. But anything been blazing the trail at the gallops that's worth following in a bumper?
I don't say it's been blazing its trail because we probably haven't been
pushing the buttons.
Pushing buttons yet because we haven't been on the grass, and they've got a lot to learn. But the 3-year-olds will only come out in the spring. They haven't. They're even still having a bit of a break before they come in and start work before Christmas and come up for the spring. From last year, there are quite a few that I thought would have won bumpers if we'd have got to the racecourse. One does get Blue Run. I think he's a beautiful horse by Blue Brazil. He came from last year's Goff's Arkle sale. He's a beautifully bred horse, but you won't see a better looking horse. Doesn't always make them very fast, but I think he's pretty capable.